Wait a second. Before you scroll past thinking this isn't about you, let me ask you something. Have you ever walked into a room and people paused? Not because of your clothes, not because of your makeup, but because of your presence. You might not even realize it, but that moment right there, that's one of the first signs. And here's the truth, you might not think you're a good-looking older woman, but the way you carry your energy, your grace, your authority, it says otherwise. Let's pull back the curtain on what most people never tell you. These aren't just signs of beauty. They're power moves. And if even one of these resonates, then yes, you're already that woman. Let's start with your eyes, not just how they look, but how they see. You've stopped scanning the room for approval. You don't need someone else's validation to feel whole. When you walk into a room, your gaze is steady. You don't flinch. That's magnetic. That's a woman who knows who she is, and people are drawn to that. Youth may turn heads, but presence commands attention. You stopped asking for it, and somehow you started owning it. You don't compete. That's another undeniable sign. You're no longer fighting to be the prettiest in the room. You've evolved beyond that. Now you walk into the room and become the standard without trying. Because you've outgrown the need for permission. You let the younger ones chase trends. You, on the other hand, set tone. You don't have to scream for attention. Your silence has more power than someone else's loud entrance. Let's talk about elegance. Real elegance isn't about pearls or posture. It's how you handle pressure. When chaos enters the room, you don't unravel, you lead. You don't need to tell people who you are. Your resilience introduces you first. You've taken heartbreak, disappointment, and betrayal, and transformed it into wisdom. That's not just beautiful. That's lethal in the best way. You've become the woman others seek when they're lost, and the one who no longer gets rattled by noise. You know what else? You're comfortable in your skin. Truly. That's rare. You don't apologize for aging, for being softer in some places, stronger in others. You've stopped hiding under filters or over-explaining your choices. You've stopped asking for smaller portions of food, of space, of life. You've learned to take up your space without guilt. And there is nothing more attractive than a woman who owns who she is without shrinking. And let's be real, you've become mysterious, and you don't even try. When you were younger, you probably overshared to feel accepted. But now, you've mastered the power of privacy. You speak less, but your words hit harder. You know when to lean in and when to walk away. You've realized that not everyone deserves access to your energy. You've gone from being available to being rare. That shift alone changes how the world sees you. Your style, it's not trendy. It's intentional. You wear what fits you, not what the magazines dictate. You don't follow fashion. You create atmosphere. Your scent, your walk, the way you enter a room, it's poetry in motion. There's a quiet sophistication in how you express yourself now. That scarf on your neck, the way your wristwatch rests. The hint of bold lipstick, it's all a message. You're not dressing to impress. You're dressing to remind people who you are. You listen differently now. You're not waiting to talk. You're not desperate to be understood. You're grounded enough to sit in silence and observe. That ability, to hear between the lines, gives you power. People feel seen around you. That alone sets you apart. You're no longer just attractive. You've become unforgettable. You handle rejection differently now too. You used to wonder, what did I do wrong? Now you ask, was that even aligned with who I am? You've learned to walk away from what doesn't serve you. And that's one of the strongest signs of beauty, because a woman who doesn't beg to be chosen becomes the woman everyone wants. Your standards, sky high, and not because you're picky, but because you know what peace feels like, and you're not willing to trade it for momentary attention. You don't entertain chaos, you don't tolerate disrespect. You've stopped explaining why you're unavailable. Now you just are, and that quiet boundary you hold, that's stunning. That's the kind of self-respect that glows through your skin. Let's talk about your laughter. It's deeper now, fuller, real, because you've cried enough tears to earn it. You've laughed through pain. You've laughed in rooms that once broke you. And now that laugh, it's rich with survival. It's beautiful, not because it's youthful, but because it's honest. And it's the kind of sound that lingers in people's minds long after you're gone. You're not afraid of solitude anymore. You don't fear being alone. You honor it. While others chase company to feel wanted, you've learned to sit with your own thoughts and feel whole. That kind of self-possession is magnetic. It shows in how you move, in how you speak, in how you don't chase after people or attention. You've become the calm in a world that's addicted to noise. And lastly, you've turned pain into presence. Every scar you carry, every lesson you've lived through, has carved something powerful into your energy. You don't hide your age. You wear it like a badge of honor. You've survived. You've conquered. You've risen. That's not just good looking. That's iconic. So if you ever wonder whether you're still attractive, stop looking in the mirror and start looking at how people respond to your energy. The right ones feel it before they even hear your name. You are not past your prime. You are in your power. You ever notice how some women can walk into a room and not say a single word, yet somehow every head turns? It's not because of a tight dress or a flashy smile. It's presence. Real, commanding, grounded presence. And here's the thing. When you're an older woman who owns herself, you don't even realize how much power you carry. It's in the way you enter a space. Shoulders back, eyes forward. No desperation in your step, no apology in your posture. That's not something you're born with. That's something you earn. You've lived enough life to know that you don't need to be loud to be heard. You've grown into a woman who doesn't chase attention. Because your energy demands it without asking, people feel it when you walk in. It's like the room adjusts. You're not trying to impress anymore. You're not here to compete or compare. You show up knowing exactly who you are. And that unnerves people in the best way. There's something about a woman who carries herself like she doesn't owe the world an explanation. That's magnetic. That's rare. And that's you, even if you haven't realized it yet. You're not overlooked. You're observed. And people are watching you differently now. Not just because of how you look, but because of what you embody. Your presence speaks volumes, even when you say nothing at all. You used to wait for someone to tell you were enough, pretty enough, smart enough, worthy enough, but somewhere along the line, after the heartbreaks, the silent treatments, the rooms where you had to prove yourself, you stopped waiting. You realized no one was coming to hand your value. So you picked it up yourself. You stopped measuring your worth by how many compliments you got or how many people approved of your choices. You stopped shrinking just to make others feel comfortable. And the moment you did that, that's when your entire aura changed. Now you walk with a different kind of energy. You don't need anyone to tell you're beautiful. You know what you bring to the table. You don't explain your decisions to anyone who doesn't live your life. You've stepped out of the performance. No more pretending, no more bending. And that quiet confidence, that calm refusal to seek approval, it's magnetic. Because when you stop needing validation, you become untouchable. Not because you're arrogant, but because you've built your foundation from within. And nothing external, no opinion, no judgment, can shake that now. You're no longer looking out there for what's already living inside you. People throw around the word elegance like it's about posture, pearls, or how neatly you fold a napkin. But real elegance, it shows up in the way you handle chaos. It's in how you respond when things fall apart. You don't flinch. You don't unravel. You assess, you breathe, and you move. That calm under pressure, that's what makes you stunning. It's not something you learn from a book or a YouTube tutorial. It's something life carved into you, one hard moment at a time. The betrayals you didn't see coming. The times you had to hold yourself together when everything inside you was screaming. That's where the grace came from. You walk with a softness now, but make no mistake. It's not weakness. It's control. It's discipline. It's the strength of someone who doesn't need to react to everything. You don't beg for attention. You don't broadcast your pain. You've earned the kind of composure that silences a room without needing to raise your voice. That's the elegance people feel when they meet you, even if they can't explain it. You've turned pain into poise and hardship into harmony. You're not beautiful despite what you've survived. You're beautiful because of it. And that kind of elegance doesn't fade. It deepens. You stop trying to fit into someone else's definition of beauty. There was a time, maybe, When you stood in front of the mirror picking yourself apart, comparing, adjusting, covering. But not anymore. Now you see yourself with different eyes, not the critical ones the world tried to hand you, but the ones shaped by experience, by truth, by self-respect. You've accepted that your body is not something to be fixed. It's a timeline of everything you've lived through. Every line, every curve, every mark tells a story. And instead of hiding them, you've started to honor them. You don't wear makeup to mask anymore. You wear it to express. You don't dress to compete. You dress to align. You choose what makes you feel powerful, not what's trending. And you've stopped asking for smaller portions, of food, of space, of opportunity. You don't apologize for taking up room in a world that told you to stay quiet and invisible. You stand tall in your skin, knowing that confidence isn't about perfection. It's about presence. That self-acceptance you've cultivated, it radiates. It's the kind of beauty that doesn't need filters, angles, or approval. Because the most attractive thing in the room is a woman who no longer second-guesses her reflection. There's something about a woman who no longer feels the need to explain everything. She doesn't jump to fill every silence. She doesn't overshare to feel seen. She's measured. She's intentional. She speaks with precision, and when she's quiet, it's not because she has nothing to say, it's because she knows not everyone has earned the right to hear her. That's the shift most people miss. When you were younger, silence felt uncomfortable. It felt like you were being misunderstood or dismissed if you didn't jump in, if you didn't tell your whole story, if you didn't pack your pain for others to validate. But now, you've outgrown that. You've realized that mystery isn't a defense mechanism. It's a power move. You've learned that people don't need to know everything. In fact, they shouldn't. Your personal life is not public domain. Your goals, your relationships, your struggles, your next move, that's your sacred ground. Not because you're hiding, but because you're protecting your peace. You've seen how the wrong people weaponize your vulnerability. You've felt what it's like to open up too soon, only to be met with judgment, gossip, or manipulation. So now, you move differently, strategically. You give access based on trust, not proximity. There's a strength in that restraint, and not everyone will understand it. Some will call you cold, distant, guarded. But those words don't come from people who respect boundaries. They come from people who used to benefit from your lack of them. Because when you were open to everyone, you were bleeding energy. You were over-explaining your value, constantly proving you were worthy of love, of space, of being heard. But now, you let your energy speak, and your silence, that's where the real power is. Because when you go quiet, people feel it. When you pause, people lean in. You've stopped being the woman who needs to be understood at every moment, and started being the woman who chooses when and where to reveal herself. And that mystery, that's magnetic. Let's not sugarcoat it. Mystery is attractive, not in the superficial, manipulative way, not in the games women are told to play. No, this is real. It's rooted in self-control, in emotional intelligence, in confidence. You know who you are. You don't need to put your whole soul on display to be valid. You don't need to post every win, every tear, every moment of your life to feel seen. You've made peace with being misunderstood because you finally understand yourself. And now, you speak when it matters. You know the value of timing. You know the weight of your words. You no longer spill everything just to feel connected. You've realized that not all connection is good connection. Some people don't want to understand you. They want to collect data on you. Some don't listen to hear, they listen to compare, and you've decided to stop feeding those dynamics. You don't give access to your emotions just because someone asks. You give it when someone earns it. That's the difference. That's maturity. That's self-respect. It shows in your posture, in your tone, in how you carry yourself. You're not tense or defensive. You're clear. You're measured. And that makes people listen. They notice when you speak because they know you don't speak just to fill space. And when you don't speak, it's not passive. It's intentional. You've stopped chasing the need to be understood by everyone. You're no longer editing yourself to fit in. You're no longer pouring your truth into people who only show up to take. You've become selective. And that's powerful. You've built a boundary of grace around your life, and now you guard it with precision. Not everyone gets in. Not every question gets answered. Not every insult gets a reaction. You've learned that silence is sometimes the most dignified response. You've learned that privacy is peace. You've learned that what people don't know about you is often your greatest advantage. You've stepped into a level of womanhood where mystery is not an accident. It's your choice. You've stopped trying to correct the false narratives people create about you. Let them talk. Let them wonder. Because what they think no longer dictates how you feel. You've created a life that doesn't need constant justification. And in doing so, you've built freedom. A freedom most don't even realize exists. The freedom of not needing to be understood by people who aren't equipped to hold your truth. That kind of self-possession. That's rare. That's unforgettable. And it radiates far beyond anything you can wear or say. It's how you are. People feel it when they sit next to you. When they watch how you don't react to drama. When they notice how you don't gossip, don't rush to prove, don't jump into every conversation. You're discerning now. You've mastered the pause. You know that just because someone asks a question doesn't mean they deserve the answer. And just because someone knocks at your emotional door doesn't mean you have to open it. You've redefined what it means to be approachable. You're warm, but you're not available to just anyone. You're kind, but your kindness is no longer for the undeserving. You've stopped bleeding for people who wouldn't offer you a band-aid. You've stopped giving loyalty to those who only brought convenience. You don't explain your silence. You don't justify your decisions. You just live, quietly, powerfully, purposefully. And here's what's beautiful about that: you've turned your privacy into elegance. You've turned your boundaries into art. You've stopped explaining why you are the way you are and started honoring it. That's what separates you now. That's why you walk into a room and people pay attention. Not because you're the loudest, but because your energy is disciplined. Because you don't give everyone the same version of you. Because you understand that protecting your peace isn't selfish. It's sacred. So the next time you wonder why people pause around you, why they lean in when you speak, why they study your silent sight, understand this: you've become rare. In a world that overshares, overacts, and overcompensates. You've mastered the art of holding back. You've become the kind of woman whose mystery isn't emptiness. It's depth. And that depth, it's not just beautiful, it's legendary. There's something different about the way you show up now. You don't walk into a room trying to be seen. You walk in already knowing you belong. And it shows in your style, not because it's loud or trendy, but because it's deliberate. You've stopped dressing for the eyes of others. You're not chasing the latest fashion posts. You're not trying to recreate someone else's look. You've found your own rhythm, your own texture, your own voice in how you present yourself. That's what makes your style unshakable. Because it's not declaration, it's a declaration. You wear what makes you feel powerful. Maybe it's a blazer that makes your shoulders feel like armor. Maybe it's a piece of jewelry that holds memory and meaning. Maybe it's the way you pair your favorite shoes with that one outfit that never fails you. Every piece you put on is intentional. Every choice you make is rooted in identity, not insecurity. You're not trying to fit in anymore. You're creating your own lane. And people notice that even if they can't put it into words. They feel the difference between someone dressing to impress and someone dressing from self-ownership. That scent you wear, it's not just perfume. It's a signature. The way you walk. It's not rehearsed. It's the rhythm of a woman who knows she's already arrived. The color you chose this morning, it wasn't accidental. It matched your energy. You've stopped asking, is this too much, or will they like it? Now you ask, does this reflect me? And that shift, that's everything. There's nothing more attractive than authenticity wrapped in intention. That's what your style has become. A mirror of your evolution. You've figured out how to blend strength with softness, how to balance edge with elegance. You don't need to scream for attention. You don't wear outfits to demand it. You walk in quietly and still turn heads, because it's not just about what you're wearing. It's how you wear it. It's the confidence behind it, the clarity, the identity. You could wear something simple, something understated, and still outshine everyone in the room, because your presence carries the look, not the other way around. And here's the thing. Style like yours isn't bought. It's built. It comes from the years you spent figuring out who you are. From the days you tried to fit in and realized you weren't meant to. From the moment you stopped letting the world dress you and started dressing yourself with power, with precision, with purpose. That's the kind of style that doesn't fade with time. It evolves with it. You've become the woman others study, not because you follow trends, but because you've created something timeless, something real, something only you can pull off. You don't walk around needing approval anymore. You wear your look like you wear your name. With certainty. That's not just attractive. That's unforgettable. You don't listen the way you used to. When you were younger, you were often listening to respond, ready to defend, to explain, to prove yourself. But now, you listen to understand. You hear more than the words people say. You pick up on tone, body language, hesitation, energy. You've sharpened that instinct over years of watching who says one thing and does another. You've learned that what's not said often carries more truth than what is. And that ability, to hear what's between the lines, is part of what makes you so compelling. People feel safe talking to you, and they don't always know why. It's because you're not in a rush to make everything about you. You don't hijack conversations with your own story just to feel relevant. You've learned to hold space, to let people speak, to really see them without needing the spotlight. That kind of presence is rare. And when people are around it, they remember it, because in a world where everyone's trying to be heard, you've become the woman who listens. Not just with your ears, but with your whole presence. But don't mistake your stillness for softness. You're not listening because you're passive. You're listening because you're powerful. You're taking in information. You're reading the situation. You've learned that the person who speaks less often sees more. While others are busy trying to impress, you're picking up patterns. While they fill the silence, you're reading the truth that slips out when their guard drops. That quiet awareness. That's dangerous in the best way. You've also learned not everyone deserves your voice. You don't pour your insights into people who aren't open to growth. You've stopped trying to change minds that are committed to misunderstanding you. You no longer waste energy convincing people of your worth. You already know it. So you listen, and if someone isn't aligned with you, you don't argue. You disengage, calmly, powerfully, without drama. That kind of discernment isn't just attractive, it's magnetic, because it shows you know who you are, and you're not shaken by someone else's lack of awareness. You've trained yourself to respond, not react. To stay composed, even when someone tries to provoke you. You don't let emotions control the room anymore. You control yourself, and that shifts the dynamic completely. People sense it. They know you're not the one to manipulate or push around. Not because you're aggressive, but because you're anchored. You don't move with the wind. You decide your pace. And when you speak, people lean in, because they know you don't speak just to fill the silence. You speak to shift it. That ability to be fully present, to hear deeply, to observe without reacting. That's the kind of power that doesn't need volume. It doesn't need applause. It just is. And it leaves an impact long after you've walked away. You've become the woman who can read a room in seconds, adjust your energy, and command without demanding. That kind of listening isn't just a skill. It's a weapon, and you've mastered it. There was a time when rejection used to sting deep. It used to make you question your worth, your choices, your voice. You used to internalize it. Why wasn't I good enough? What did I do wrong? But that version of you doesn't exist anymore. Now, when rejection shows up, true strength, you don't see it as a failure. You see it as a filter. You've learned to stop chasing things that aren't aligned with who you are. And when something, or someone, doesn't choose you, you don't fall apart. You step back and ask the better question, was that even right for me in the first place? You've reached a point in your life where you understand that being passed over doesn't mean you're lacking. Sometimes, it means you've outgrown that level. It means your energy is too strong, your standards too high, your truth too loud for spaces that only know how to handle the watered-down version of you. So you don't shrink anymore. You don't adjust your light to fit inside a dim room. You don't beg to be included. You walk away. And you do it without burning the building down. Because you know your peace is louder than any exit. That shift in how you handle rejection. It's not just growth. It's power. Because now you know that what you don't get is sometimes protection. You've seen what happens when you force yourself into places that can't support your spirit. You've experienced what it's like to overextend, overgive, overstay, only to end up exhausted and unseen. You've been there, you've learned, and now you move with boundaries, with clarity, with standards that don't waver when someone tells you no. You don't personalize every closed door. You don't break down when someone walks away. You don't chase. You don't convince. You don't plead. You observe. You assess. And if it doesn't feel aligned, you release. That ability to release, without anger, without drama, that's rare. That's attractive. Because it tells the world you don't need to be chosen to feel valuable. You've already chosen yourself. And once a woman does that, she stops tolerating halfway love, conditional friendships, and empty praise. You've mastered the quiet goodbye, the silent exit. You don't post about it. You don't explain it. You don't announce your healing journey or broadcast your strength. You just go. Because you've learned that the right things for you won't require begging. The right people won't need convincing. And the right environments will make you feel safe in your truth, not pressured to perform for acceptance. And what's even more powerful, you don't carry bitterness. You don't hold grudges. You understand that not everything lost is a tragedy. Sometimes it's a redirection. Sometimes it's a necessary clearing to make room for what actually deserves you. You've stopped clinging to what's familiar just because it's comfortable. You're willing to be alone rather than be tolerated. You're willing to start over rather than settle. And that strength, that silent, grounded strength, is more radiant than anything you wore in your 20s. You've stopped proving and started protecting. And now, rejection doesn't bruise your identity. It confirms your standards. That's what happens when a woman learns her value isn't up for negotiation. She doesn't just handle rejection. She commands through it. Quietly, powerfully, unshaken. You don't chase anymore. You attract. Not because you've given up, but because you've finally realized your energy is currency. And it's expensive. You've stopped offering it to anyone who simply shows interest. You've learned that access to you is a privilege, not a guarantee. And that shift, it changed everything. Because when you raise your standards, when you become more intentional about who gets your time, your body, your space, you stop chasing crumbs and start commanding respect. You're not impressed by attention anymore. You used to confuse attention with affection, noise with connection, consistency with intention. But now, you watch how people move. You see through the charm, the promises, the potential. You don't fall for words. You watch actions. You've stopped tolerating inconsistency just to avoid being alone. You've learned that solitude isn't punishment. It's power. And because of that, you've become dangerous to people who once thrived off your insecurities. Your standards aren't unrealistic. They're earned. You didn't raise them out of ego. You raised them because you've lived through the consequences of lowering them. You've dealt with the cost of ignoring red flags. You've felt the ache of betraying yourself just to keep the peace. And now, you'd rather protect your peace than enter in chaos. You'd rather be alone in truth than surrounded by people who make you question your worth. And here's the thing. You don't explain those standards anymore. You don't list them out. You don't post about them. You don't turn them into ultimatums. You live them. You show them in how quickly you walk away from disrespect. In how calmly you say no. In how uninterested you are in proving yourself. You don't need to make noise about your boundaries. They're built into your presence. People feel them. They either rise to meet you, or they fall away. And either way, you're good. You've become magnetic not because you seek attention, but because you hold space. You're rooted. You're intentional. You don't give energy where there's no reciprocity. You don't entertain connections that drain you. You don't keep people around just to avoid being empty. You've filled yourself. That wholeness, that emotional independence, it radiates. And now, people come to you differently. The ones who used to take you for granted start watching from a distance. The ones who approach you now have to come correct. Because you don't flinch at the idea of walking away. You've stopped chasing love, friendship, opportunities. Because you've realized that what's meant for you will never require you to lose yourself to keep it. You attract now because your standards speak louder than your words. You attract because you've become the woman who doesn't bend to be liked, who doesn't shrink to be accepted. You're not chasing the spotlight, you are the light, and those who are ready for that kind of energy, they don't make you guess. They show up with clarity, with honesty, with respect. And that's the only kind of energy you entertain now. You don't try to hide the parts of you that have been through hell anymore. You've stopped wishing away the scars, the lines, the stories etched into your face and your soul. You've stopped pretending the pain didn't happen. And instead, you've let it shape you into someone unshakable. You've turned pain into presence. You walk into a room, and without saying a word, people can feel that you've lived. That you've seen the darkness and chose not to stay there. That kind of depth doesn't come from comfort. It comes from surviving what was meant to break you. You don't flinch when things get hard. You don't crumble at criticism. You've had worse thrown at you and still stood tall. Every mistake you made, every heartbreak you survived, every lesson you learned the hard way, it all built something inside you that can't be bought. It's not perfection, it's power. Quiet, grounded, lived in power. You've faced betrayal, silence, being overlooked, underestimated, and you've used it all as fuel. You carry yourself like a woman who has been through the fire and came out with diamonds in her spirit. And that's what people can't quite name when they look at you. They try to define it by age or appearance, but it's more than that. It's how you carry loss and still radiate grace. It's how you've been let down and still choose to rise. You've stopped asking life to be easier. You've simply become stronger. And now you don't apologize for your past, you own it. You wear it. Not like a wound, but like armor. Your story isn't a weakness. It's your edge. That edge shows in how you speak, in how you pause before responding, in how you don't panic under pressure. You've been through enough to know that most things aren't as serious as they seem. You don't overreact. You observe. You've developed a presence that people can't ignore, because you carry pain with poise. You don't broadcast your suffering, but it's in the way you empathize, in the way you give advice with weight, in the way you see through people before they reveal themselves. You've become a woman with gravity, one who doesn't need to prove she's been through something, because her presence already says it all. You're not chasing the youthful version of you. You're evolving her. You've kept the fire, but now it burns steadier. You've kept the softness, but now it's protected. You've stopped trying to be the girl who's untouched. And instead, you've become the woman who's untouchable, not because she hasn't suffered, but because she has and kept going anyway. And that's the most beautiful, most powerful, most unforgettable kind of woman there is. So if you've ever looked in the mirror and questioned whether you're still beautiful, still radiant, still seen, let this be your reminder. You are not just a good-looking older woman, you are a force. You carry wisdom in your walk, power in your presence, and fire in your silence. You don't need the world's permission to be seen. You already are. Not because of what you wear, not because of what you say, but because of who you've become. You've earned every ounce of your glow. You've outgrown the noise, the games, the need to be chosen. Now, you choose yourself. That's not just beauty. That's legendary.